In early March of 2020, the world changed as we knew it. And as we entered into the pandemic, we entered a time of unknown, of uncertainty. We didn't know where we were going to go next.
We saw a clear need for information and for action. Certain steps that we took were really just what our job is, to be there for our community.
I don't mind saying that it was a little frightening. A few days after I returned to Cleveland, I found out that when I was out of town, I was exposed to the virus, and I had to be quarantined for a couple of weeks. I knew that it was going to affect our community in a very serious way, and I'm just so happy that our community responded in an appropriate way.
When we first realized that we would have to switch to remote learning, and soon thereafter realized it could be for an extended period of time, it was a little bit of a scramble for us and for the other Jewish day schools. We had to figure out how to convert everything to remote learning. How could we provide the technology necessary for everybody? How can we support our teachers to change how they approached teaching in their classrooms? And how can we provide the emotional support that everybody in our community would really need?
We knew going into the campaign that there were going to be people that just couldn't participate this year. They just couldn't. They were, their jobs had been eliminated, or because of having to be locked down, they were going to be unable to, they were going to be functioning just to kind of get through it. And what that did is that put a responsibility on those of us that could to do a little bit more.
But as we always do in Cleveland, we got together, we communicated, we collaborated, and we faced the challenges head on. One of the things that we talked about a lot was, what are the needs going to be? How are we going to make sure that the elderly are taken care of? How are we going to make sure that people in isolation have connection points? How are we going to make sure that those that are hungry have food on the table?
There were a number of steps that we took immediately to keep the community safe. Number one was talking to the experts about what they were seeing and what they needed. Initially, hands-on volunteers stepping in to deliver food to people who used to receive a hot meal 6 days a week through the Congregate Meals program run by our Mandel Jewish Community Center. That was essential.
I was in the 2 for a virtual summit in one of these private rooms where you get to learn very specific things. Erica said, I can feed everybody who is hungry. I just need to know where they are. I just need to spend a lot of time, infrastructure, strategy to figure out who needs the help, but I have the resources to help them. For her to say that with that boldness, with that leadership, and she meant it.
The fund tries to help agencies, institutions, people that have been affected by the virus. There were so many groups that needed funding to help feed needy people. Here are the institutions that we help: the Cleveland Chesed Center, the Kosher Food Pantry, Diker Cholam, Matan B'Seser, and the West Tribe. We heard the need, and our committee responded.
The same anxiety that we experienced here in Cleveland was experienced by all of our partners overseas. This was unique that all of us were going through this together. In St. Petersburg, we're so proud of the Yesod, the Jewish Community Center, serving all of their membership. They didn't lose a member during the pandemic, and going entirely to virtual programming. We were able to support the social, emotional needs of our children in Beit Shan who were in and out of school, many of whom didn't have the technology prior to the pandemic that would enable them to learn distantly.
In the early days of the pandemic, when we were uncertain as to how we were going to fund needs that we knew were going to come at us very, very quickly, and we were trying to assess how we were going to take care of that, we didn't even need to pick up the phone to try to find those dollars. The phone rang to us, and that call was from the Mandel Foundation. And we are ever so grateful for the foundation calling us, saying, what can we do to help? How can we get you over this hump? And how can we make sure that we don't miss a beat in the community?
You can't say enough about the people that support our community. You just can't. People like to know that their gifts matter. And more importantly, that the way they give can be multiplied or magnified by the efforts of other organizations. Mandel Match allowed us to get out of the blocks early.
The Here for Good campaign, we raised an incredible amount of money and were able to have the dollars for the community in the way that we were in previous years was incredibly special. We're just tremendous memories of the challenges that we had as a community and the way that everyone stepped up and we rallied together.
In 20 years, I will still be talking about how the Federation stepped up and raised enormous funds and support for the children of this community and the Jewish day schools. Our community has always had a reputation nationally as one where there's tremendous support for the Jewish day schools from the Federation. This only cemented that further.
It takes a lot for a household to declare themselves in a position to need help. It was a resilience of let's do this by ourselves. And yes, they did the best they could, but it was only because of the Cleveland Federation that we were able to absorb that need and that volume. And here we are a year later.
It was never Federation stepping forward by ourselves as an organization. It was Federation as community together with all of these partners.
Just seeing and hearing how quickly we had begun responding as a community really kind of made it clear to me that no matter how long this lasts, we were going to be here for good.
Just the way people rolled up their sleeves and said, what can I do to help? How can I help? It was just, you knew that we were not only going to get through it, but we were going to emerge stronger.